news coming out of the Vatican that is causing quite a stir with people online. The Vatican now sends a Ramadan message to Muslims saying that Christians and Muslims are called to walk side by side with one another. This is something that we've seen this particular dicastery from the Vatican say many times, pretty much annually, not only with Muslims, but we'll generally get a message like this with Buddhists, Hindus, and others. And so, not incredibly unusual to see the Vatican doing this, however, still very controversial. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a look at what Vatican News is saying about the matter. And then I also want to take a look at a few comments and reactions that people are having to this on Twitter. Like I say, quite a bit of controversy and a lot of negative reaction to the matter. I did, by the way, put a poll here on the channel in the community post section asking you if you agree or disagree with the Vatican's message to call Christians to walk side by side with Muslims during this time of fasting, where Muslims are going through Ramadan and Catholics are going through Lent. Okay, so let me share my screen and we're going to take a look at what Vatican News is saying. One second. Sorry about that. Let me also remind y'all, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Okay, so yeah, Vatican Ramadan message. Christians and Muslims called to walk side by side, according to Vatican News. This is from a message from the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue that was just released. It notes that it highlights the Islamic holy month this year coincides with Lent and calls for inner transformation so that Christians and Muslims might work together for peace. For peace, they say. As it does every year during the month of fasting, the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue has released its message for Ramadan. This year's message, signed by the Dicastery's new prefect, Cardinal Kuvakad, is centered on the theme Christians and Muslims, what we hope to become together. This time of fasting, prayer, and sharing, the message reads, is a privileged opportunity to draw closer to God and be renewed in the fundamental values of religion, compassion, and solidarity. This year, Ramadan largely coincides with Lent, which for Christians is a period of fasting, supplication, and conversion to Christ. This rare alignment in the religious calendar, Cardinal Kuvakad writes, offers a unique opportunity to walk side by side, Christians and Muslims in common process of purification, prayer, and charity. And by the way, let me grab this. Thank you so much, Mahoval, for that super chat. He says, is there a reaction that is not negative on anything on social media, especially X? That's funny. Continuing here with the article, an inner transformation. More than simply a month of fasting, Ramadan appears to us Catholics as a school of inner transformation, the message continues. In Christian tradition, Lent is a similar time, a period when through fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, we seek to purify our hearts and refocus on the one who guides and directs our lives. I'm sorry, this is a joke. Lent, I'm sorry, 2 times in the year, you're restricted to basically 2 meals. If you want to call that fasting, yeah, go for it. Sure. Both Ramadan and Lent, through their calls to devotion and self-discipline, serve as reminders that faith is not just about outward gestures, but a journey of inner conversion, the message emphasizes. That's interesting. Inner conversion. Conversion to what? Just a better version of yourself? I thought the Christian message was a conversion to Jesus and to Christianity and to the gospel and to an adherence to the gospel. Anyways, a world in need of fraternity and dialogue. However, Cardinal Kuvakad warns that in a world marked by injustice, conflict, and uncertainty about the future, our shared calling cannot be reduced to spiritual practices alone. He stresses that Christians and Muslims can bear witness together to the hope that friendship is possible, despite the weight of history and the ideologies that divide us. In this Jubilee year centered on hope, the message reaffirms the Christian belief that hope is rooted in the certainty that God's love is stronger than any trials or obstacles. Is that ultimately the message? Faith in God, the statement continues, is a treasure that unites us. This year, as both Christians and Muslims, traditions converge in the observance of Ramadan and Lent. Believers have a unique opportunity to show the world that faith transforms both individuals and societies, acting as a force for unity and reconciliation. The message underscores that Christians do not simply seek to coexist with Muslims, but to live together in sincere and mutual respect. The common values shared by Christians and Muslims, such as justice, compassion, and respect for creation, should inspire our actions and our relationships and serve as a compass for building bridges rather than walls, the message says. In this season of Ramadan and the approach of Eid al-Fitr, we are happy to share this hope with you. May our prayers, our gestures of solidarity, and our efforts for peace be tangible signs of our sincere friendship with you. May this feast be an occasion for fraternal encounters between Muslims and Christians, in which we can celebrate together God's goodness, the Vatican says. Of course, as you can imagine, reactions are mostly very critical and negative. One person says Pope Francis's version of Christianity. Instead of preaching Christ to the lost, he is telling them not to worry, that it's okay to be without Christ. In fairness, I doubt very seriously Pope Francis is aware of what's going on with any of this. Not that it would be any different if he was, though. Okay. What we hope to become together is a wonderful form of unity and transformation into a deeper reality, one individual says. Another says, I'm not becoming anything with Muslims. Muslims? They deny the divinity of Jesus. And those who deny Jesus deny the Father who sent him. And before Vatican II, we called them heretics. And we did so for a reason. Another commenter says, it would be awesome if we could have Catholic leadership who actually liked and defended Catholics in the faith. I had no idea when I converted that the faithful were despised by the leaders of the church. It's been a heartbreaking realization, to say the least. Another person says, we can become nothing together. If it was to be, Christ would have told us so himself. But he said, no one goes to the Father except through him. Muslims are non-believers. Let's repent and get back to God. Another person says, no, Christ is the only way, not Muhammad. Another person says, this is not the way. The leadership of the church worries me, especially when I hear things like this. Pray for the Holy See. This is not the way. Another person says, what we hope to become together is Catholic. Another individual comments, there's no such thing as hope of walking side by side between these two. Don't be deceived. Christians may be open to such initiative, but Muslims will only use that medium to penetrate and throw you over. So it's a capital no. Another person says, light and darkness don't mix. So again, as you can see, quite a few critical comments there. You know, I saw another comment from another person who was telling me about this, and they were sharing their thoughts with me, and they were basically saying, why is it that the Vatican focuses so much on other religions and not its own? Why does it send messages encouraging other religions during their holy months, but not their own? I understand the sentiment. I think that there's a lot of people who probably feel that way, that sometimes there's a lot of positive comments from the Vatican about other religions, um, whereas some people feel like the comments that are being made about faithful Catholics tend to be critical. At least that's the perception that some people have and are coming away with, and they see this kind of stuff and they get concerned. Let's see. We got a super chat here. Thank you so much for this. One individual says, I love Muslims. Their faith is from the devil. All right. Thank you so much for that comment. Daniel says, does this mean I can take my Shahada? That's pretty funny. D Bear says, "What did I miss? I don't know. You missed the whole show, I guess." Uh, Matthew Schmidt, member for 21 months. Thank you so much for the support. He says, "This dicastery has been doing this every year since 1965 for all religions. The dicastery should be abolished." Thank you for the comment. Another comment here, super chat. Yeshua's Lord says, "Islam destroys our brothers and sisters all over the world. Let's talk about that. I refuse to accept the faith of a PDF file prophet." Thank you so much for that super chat there. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Can I give my take on how this is different from coming alongside other religions or even Protestants? Um, what what do you mean coming alongside of? Um, I mean that's what they're calling for, so I don't think it's different. I think that's exactly what they're calling for. Um, how is that maybe different than coming alongside of Protestants, which the Vatican also calls for? I suppose that with Protestants, there's still some kind of shared foundation of Christianity and belief in Christianity. Whereas with Muslims, there isn't that shared foundation. So there's certainly a larger gap there. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Sandra says the Vatican dicastery is damned and Francis is a heretic. Let's see. Linz says, "I will continue to pray for all Muslims to be saved and find Christ." Matthew Schmidt says Pope Francis is not a heretic. Let's see what else we got here. Gray says the problem with coexisting with Muslims is that they usually don't want to coexist with us. Also, aren't we called to proclaim Christ and his church and his conversion? Yeah, that's where you get kind of an interesting thing from Pope Francis. He'll have messages on the one hand where he talks about how everyone needs to convert to Jesus, everyone needs to embrace Jesus. He'll say explicitly, Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. He has those messages, and then he has his other messages where he talks about all religions being paths to God. So you'll tend to see, two different things there from Pope Francis, and certainly some people have tried to harmonize those things. I've reviewed some of those comments critically here on this channel. So you're certainly welcome to go and watch those. Okay. Jerome says Christians aren't going around beheading Muslims. Why walk beside a religion that does this? Let's see. Dana says, don't think that there's a problem with linking fasting and prayer to Muslim practices, but too much close identification could obscure the supernatural difference. Well, I've noticed from the Vatican in the post-conciliar period, there tends to be an avoidance of a discussion of any differences in theology with pretty much anyone, and there tends to only be a focus on what Christians and others have in common. What if there's perhaps some kind of common stance against abortion or something, they'll highlight that. But they won't really talk a whole lot about, theological differences between Christians and non-Christians. That's tends to be the focus from what I've seen in the post-conciliar period, for better or worse, and it's likely the latter. But of course, you're welcome to disagree. Okay, Christoph says perhaps walking with Muslims is the only way we can convert them. Gray says, I think there should be a Vatican III to end the post-conciliar liberalism. Well, I thought we've learned that lesson from history already. Calling an ecumenical council to fix a previous ecumenical council because a previous ecumenical council wasn't fully implemented has always been a disaster historically, every time we've ever done that. And it always caused more problems. So I don't know about that one. Okay. Jerome says, were the Crusades about turning the other cheek? No, we actually defended our brothers and sisters. Interestingly, I think it was John Paul II who apologized for the Crusades. Did he not? Let's double check. See if I can find it. Oh, this is hilarious. Wikipedia has a whole article called "List of Apologies Made by Pope John Paul II." That's funny. Um, okay, so looks like he has an apology for the Crusaders' sack of Constantinople in 1204. He apologized for that. I don't see anything else, so that may be his only apology um, for the Crusades. Let's see. Evan says, "Do we think Muslims are happy about this unity? I bet many of them are laughing." Classical Catholicism says, "No, Jesus is the only way. Any other religion is a lie." Carr says, "The sake of Constantinople was horrible." True. Very true. The Crusaders, by the way, were already excommunicated before they did that by Pope Innocent III. Just fun fact for you. Gray says, "I think John Paul II apologized for abuses during the Crusades. Don't see why to apologize for the crusade itself." Well, I don't know. I think that when you look at someone like Pope Francis, he says, of course, death penalty is inadmissible. He says, seems like he thinks that just war theory is completely off the table and there's no such thing. Um, with a mentality like that, you would think that the Vatican at this point feels apologetic for the Crusades as a whole. If there's no just war theory, then I guess Pope Urban II calling that initial crusade, what, in 1095 or so, that would be wrong, right? If you're adopting the position of just war theory being never allowed and never justified. Has the Patriarch of Constantinople apologized for the massacre of the Latins? Not that I recall. One of them may have. If they did, I don't think it would really carry a whole lot of weight with the majority of Orthodox, however. Christoph says, "If the illumination of conscience happens, this will surely convert many Muslims." I didn't know that people actually believe in the illumination of conscience moment. I didn't know people really thought that was a thing. Okay. Joe says, "No, I cannot align with a death cult." Carr is asking about the massacre of the Latins. Yeah, that was about 20 years prior to the sack of Constantinople. What else we got here? Are there any Eastern or Western fathers that talked about what to do with Islam? Seems like John of Damascus would have. He's the one who says that Muslims worship the same God as Christians and says that Islam is a heretical Christian sect. So John of Damascus sees Islam not as a different religion, but as a Christian heretical sect, like Arianism or something. Okay. What else we got in the chat? Considering Fleeba says turning the other cheek is about self-restraint and de-escalation, not letting people off the hook when they engage in mass beheadings. Joseph says we should walk side by side, but Catholics must not consider Muhammad as a prophet or messenger of God. Oddly enough, I have seen Catholics speak of Muhammad as a prophet. Whether that's compatible with Christianity, I think is certainly questionable, given that it appears the book of Hebrews and the New Testament sees Jesus really as the last of the prophets. What else we got here in the chat? Mark says, if it wasn't for the Crusades, we would all be speaking Arab. I think you mean Arabic. Sandra says, Catholic women with Muslim husbands know that Muslims believe we are all damned for all eternity. There's different views among Muslims. Not all Muslims believe that. You'll find it's pretty much like Catholicism, where you'll have different views there. Not with the magisterium, but just with your average Catholic. Okay. Gray says Muhammad couldn't be a prophet since Jesus is the true last prophet. Right. I mean, that's why I think it's incompatible with Christianity for a Christian to speak of Muhammad as a prophet. Evan says they would not be able to convert if those friends lived in Muslim majority countries. Cruz says not all Muslims believe it, but Islam teaches it. You'll get a whole lot of pushback from some Muslims on that one, on what Islam teaches. They don't have a magisterium, or at least most Muslim groups don't. So what Islam teaches is going to be debatable among Muslims. Okay. Yeshua says we should educate Muslims on the nonsense in their religion, read the hadiths, and read the Quran. All right. Thank you for the comments. I would appreciate also if y'all could go and vote in that poll in the community section and let me know if you agree or disagree with the Vatican's message about walking side by side with Muslims. Is this something that Christians can do? And of course, also drop a line on what you think about the Vatican's message overall now that we explored what all they said. Of course, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate your support of the channel. If you want to stay updated and in tune with what's going on right now, make sure to hit the sub button and hit the bell for notifications so you know when I go live. That's going to do it for today. See you later. God bless. Hey, have you been benefiting from this channel, but you're not supporting it?
You're definitely guilty.
Get over to patreon.com/Reason and Theology and support this channel if you've been benefiting from the content.
Did I say get it done now?
And I mean right now.
And if you can't support the show financially, you should at least be subscribed, right? Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, I think he's right.
I'm right. So go and hit the subscribe button right now.